I was fired before I could even take my first sip of morning coffee. The reason I refused to train the CEO's niece, a tech genius, who couldn't run a simple loop. They thought they'd sent me away empty-handed. But they didn't know every critical line of code in their $1.3 billion system still bore my fingerprints. And the clock was already ticking. My name is Rachel Morgan, and at 7:59 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, my decade-long career at ArcLight Systems came to an abrupt end with a single shake of my head. I'd walked into CEO Lucas Varelli's corner office expecting to discuss our quarterly strategy for Monarch, the AI framework I'd built from scratch over the past 10 years. The morning sun cast long shadows across his mahogany desk, where 2 cups of coffee sat untouched, one for him, one presumably for me. I should have known something was wrong when he didn't offer me the seat across from him. "Rachel," Lucas began, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble floor as he paced behind his desk. "I need you to take on a special project. My niece Madison just joined us yesterday. She's brilliant, graduated summa cum laude in digital storytelling from USC. The board thinks she'd be perfect to lead our tech innovation division." I felt my stomach drop. Madison Varelli. I'd seen her Instagram posts about her exciting new journey in tech just last week. 24 years old, blonde highlights, and a follower count that exceeded our company's annual revenue by several zeros. "I'd like you to train her," Lucas continued, finally meeting my eyes. "Show her the ropes, get her up to speed on Monarch's architecture. Maybe start with some basic coding principles, loops, functions, that sort of thing." The words hung in the air between us like a bad joke waiting for a punchline. I'd spent 10 years building Monarch from a concept sketched on a napkin to a revolutionary AI system that could process natural language queries faster than any competitor. I'd written over 2 million lines of code, secured 43 patents, and turned down offers from Google and Meta to stay loyal to ArcLight. And now he wanted me to teach his influencer niece what a for loop was. "Lucas," I said carefully, maintaining the professional tone that had served me well through countless boardroom battles, "I appreciate your confidence in my teaching abilities, but I'm currently managing 17 critical projects. The Durham presentation alone requires—" "This is the priority now," he interrupted, his jaw tightening. "Madison is family. She's the future of this company." I straightened my spine, feeling the familiar weight of my laptop bag on my shoulder, the same bag that held the original Monarch documentation, my personal notes, and something else Lucas didn't know about. "I'm afraid I can't do that," I said simply. "My team needs me focused on the Durham deal. We're talking about a $1.3 billion valuation. Perhaps someone from our training department would be better suited." "Are you refusing a direct request from your CEO?" His voice had shifted from cordial to cold in the space of a heartbeat. "I'm prioritizing the company's interests," I replied. "Monarch is too complex and too valuable to be treated as a training exercise." Lucas's face flushed red, the same shade I'd seen when board members questioned his decisions. He pressed a button on his desk phone. "Send HR up immediately," he barked into the speaker, then turned back to me. "Rachel Morgan, your lack of cooperation and failure to align with our company culture has made your position untenable. You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You have 15 minutes to collect your personal belongings." The words should have stung. Maybe they would have, if I hadn't seen this moment coming from the day Madison's hiring was announced, if I hadn't prepared for exactly this scenario. "I understand," I said, my voice steady as granite. "I'll need to transfer my access codes and documentation." "That won't be necessary. It will handle all transitions. Your access has already been revoked." Already revoked. He'd planned this before I even walked in. The coffee on his desk had probably gone cold waiting for this orchestrated moment. As I turned to leave, I caught my reflection in his floor-to-ceiling windows, 34 years old. Auburn hair pulled back in the same ponytail I'd worn since my first day, dressed in the navy blazer that had become my armor in this corporate battlefield. I looked exactly the same as I had an hour ago, but everything had changed. "Oh, and Rachel," Lucas called out as I reached the door. "The NDA you signed is still in effect. I trust you remember the penalties for violating it." I paused, my hand on the chrome door handle, and allowed myself the smallest of smiles, the kind that didn't reach my eyes. Of course, Lucas, I remember everything. The door clicked shut behind me with a finality that echoed through the executive floor. 7:59 a.m., the end of Rachel Morgan, Chief Technology Officer. But Lucas Varelli had just made the kind of mistake that men like him always made. He thought he owned everything within these walls. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. The hallway stretched before me like a funeral procession route. 2 security guards flanked me, Marcus and Derek. Guys I'd shared coffee with every morning for years. Marcus couldn't meet my eyes. Derek's jaw was clenched so tight I could hear his teeth grinding. "Sorry, Rachel," Marcus muttered under his breath as we passed the engineering floor. Through the glass walls, I saw my team hunched over their monitors, lines of code reflecting off their faces. Not one of them looked up. They knew. In a building where gossip traveled faster than our fiber optic connections, everyone already knew. My former office was exactly as I'd left it 45 minutes ago. The world's best boss mug my team had given me last Christmas sat next to my monitor, still half full of coffee that would never be finished. Photos lined the desk my team at last year's launch party, my mother at her remission celebration, the original Monarch development crew in someone's garage at 3 a.m., running on energy drinks and pure ambition. 15 minutes, Derek said, checking his watch. His voice cracked slightly on the words. I nodded and began the ritual every terminated employee knows by heart. Personal items only, nothing proprietary, nothing that could be construed as company property. I slipped the photos into my bag, wrapped the mug in tissue paper from my drawer. My hands moved mechanically while my mind raced through implications and possibilities. In the bottom drawer, beneath a stack of conference badges and old notebooks, my fingers found what they were looking for. A black USB drive, no bigger than my thumb. To anyone watching, it looked like any other personal storage device, the kind people use for family photos or tax documents. I palmed it smoothly, slipping it into my jacket pocket alongside my car keys. That's company property, a shrill voice announced from my doorway. Madison Varelli stood there in a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her phone held up and recording. I'm documenting this for Uncle Lucas. We can't have her stealing anything. I turned to face her, keeping my expression neutral despite the fury building in my chest. Up close, she looked even younger than her 24 years perfectly contoured makeup, extensions that fell in practiced waves, and eyes that held the kind of confidence that only comes from never having earned anything yourself. Hello, Madison. Congratulations on your new position. She lowered her phone slightly, thrown by my cordial tone. Yeah, well, Uncle Lucas says I'll be taking over your projects. He says Monarch isn't that complicated once you understand the basics. Behind her, I caught Marcus rolling his eyes. I'm sure you'll do wonderfully, I said. Returning to my packing, 3 more items: my ergonomic mouse pad, a stress ball shaped like a server, and a framed copy of Monarch's first successful compilation output, just a simple "Hello World" that had taken 6 months to achieve. You should probably leave your passwords, Madison continued, stepping into my office uninvited. Her heels clicked against the floor like a countdown timer. Uncle Lucas says you people always try to sabotage things when you leave. You people. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. All my credentials were revoked at 7:59, I said evenly. It will need to create new access protocols for you. She frowned, clearly not understanding half of what I'd said. Well, whatever. Just make sure you don't take anything important. I'll be watching the whole time. I zipped my bag closed and took one last look around the office where I'd spent countless late nights, where I'd celebrated breakthroughs and mourned failures, where I'd built something extraordinary from nothing but ambition and skill. It's all yours, I said to Madison, gesturing to the empty desk. Good luck with level 17. What? She blinked, confused. What's level 17? Nothing you need to worry about, I said, walking past her toward the door. Marcus and Derek fell into step beside me. The elevator ride down felt like descending into a different world, Each floor we passed represented another layer of the life I was leaving behind. Marketing on 12, where they'd spun my technical documentation into glossy presentations. Legal on 7, where I'd signed contract after contract, including the incorporation papers for Morgan Technologies, LLC. A detail buried so deep in subsidiary paperwork that even our CFO had missed it. The lobby was mercifully empty except for the morning receptionist, who gave me a sympathetic smile. The revolving doors expelled me onto the sidewalk at exactly 8:14 a.m., 15 minutes after my termination, right on schedule. The morning air hit my face like a wake-up call. Around me, the city continued its relentless pace, professionals rushing to meetings, coffee vendors serving the caffeine-addicted masses, the endless rhythm of ambition and commerce. I stood on the sidewalk, my box of possessions weighing nothing compared to the USB drive in my pocket. Inside that tiny device lay the key to everything, not stolen code or proprietary secrets, but something far more valuable, something Lucas Varelli, in his arrogance, had never bothered to investigate. The original patent filings for Monarch's core architecture, filed not under ArcLight Systems, but under Morgan Technologies, LLC, with my mother listed as the primary stakeholder, a perfectly legal arrangement I'd made years ago when her cancer diagnosis had threatened to bankrupt us both. ArcLight had licensing rights, of course, as long as I remained employed. I smiled then, a real smile this time, as I walked toward the parking garage. Behind me, through the building's glass facade, I could see Madison settling into my former office, her phone out, probably live-streaming her first day as a tech executive. She had no idea that in approximately 76 minutes, when Lucas tried to demonstrate Monarch to the Durham equity partners, everything would change. The countdown had already begun. My car's interior had never felt more like a command center. I slid into the driver's seat of my Tesla, placed my box of possessions in the passenger seat, and pulled out my laptop. The parking garage's fluorescent lights flickered overhead as I powered it on, my fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced precision. The Monarch control system interface appeared on my screen, elegant, minimalist, exactly as I designed it. Most people thought Monarch was just sophisticated AI software. They saw the chatbots, the predictive analytics, the natural language processing that made headlines. What they didn't see was the architecture beneath 17 layers of interconnected security protocols, each more complex than the last. I entered my credentials, not my ArcLight credentials. Those were indeed dead. These were different, older, more fundamental. Welcome, Architect. System status operational. Layers 1 to 16, active. Layer 17, standby mode. Layer 17, my insurance policy, built into Monarch's foundation from day one. While Lucas and his board celebrated each new feature I added, I'd been constructing something else entirely, a dead man's switch, elegant in its simplicity. The logic was clean. If the registered system architect's employment status changed from active to terminated without proper transition protocols, licensing verification would be required within 90 minutes. Without that verification, Monarch would enter protective mode, refusing all access attempts until the licensing dispute was resolved. I glanced at my phone. 8:23 a.m. Lucas's demonstration was scheduled for 9:30, 67 minutes until showtime. My fingers hovered over the activation command. Once I pressed enter, there would be no going back. But then I thought about Madison's sneer, about Lucas's calculated dismissal, about 10 years of my life poured into code that they thought they could simply take. I pressed enter. Employment status. Change detected. Initiating license verification protocol. Countdown initiated 89:59. The numbers began their relentless descent. I closed my laptop and started the car, pulling out of the garage into the morning traffic. As I drove, I sipped the coffee I'd grabbed from the lobby vendor, better than the one Lucas had left untouched on his desk. My phone buzzed. A text from Janet, my lead developer. Heard what happened. This is bullshit. Team is ready to walk. I pulled over to respond. Don't, not yet. Watch the 9:30 demo. 3 dots appeared. Then, what did you do? Nothing, just letting nature take its course. The city flowed past my windows as I drove toward downtown, toward the law offices of Brennan and Associates, where a particular document had been waiting in escrow for exactly this moment. My phone continued buzzing messages from team members, from industry contacts who'd already heard the news, from recruiters who smelled blood in the water. I ignored them all except one, a call from my mother. "Sweetheart, why are you calling so early? Is everything all right?" Her voice, though weakened by treatments, still carried the strength that had gotten me through every challenge in my life. "Everything's fine. Mom, better than fine. Actually, remember that paperwork I had you sign 3 years ago for the LLC? The one you said was just a formality, of course. Well, it's about to become very important. You might get some calls today. Don't answer them. Let everything go to voicemail." There was a pause. Then, with the intuition that only mothers possess, "Rachel, what did they do to you?" "They fired me," I said simply. "But they forgot to read the fine print." "Good," she said fiercely. "I never liked that Lucas. Too much gel in his hair. No one with that much gel can be trusted." Despite everything, I laughed. "I'll call you later. Love you." "Love you too, sweetheart. Give them hell." I ended the call and checked the time. 8:47 a.m., 43 minutes until Lucas's world imploded. The Brennan and Associates building loomed ahead, all glass and steel reaching toward the clouded sky. I pulled into visitor parking and grabbed my laptop bag. Inside that black USB drive wasn't just code, it was freedom, my freedom, earned through 10 years of dedication, about to be claimed in full. The countdown continued its inexorable march, 17th. I walked through the lobby, my heels clicking against marble with the same confident rhythm that had carried me through a decade at ArcLight. The difference was, this time I wasn't building someone else's empire. This time, I was claiming my own. The elevator whisked me up to the 23rd floor, where Thomas Brennan himself was waiting. We'd spoken only once before, 3 years ago, when I'd needed to structure the Morgan Technologies LLC arrangement. He'd asked me then if I was sure about what I was doing. "It's just a precaution." I told him, "I hope I never need it." Now, as his secretary ushered me into his office, I saw him smile the kind of smile lawyers get when a long-dormant strategy is about to pay dividends. "Ms. Morgan," he said, standing to shake my hand, "I heard about your employment change. Shall we discuss your options?" I sat down across from him, placing my laptop bag carefully beside the chair. Through his floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the ArcLight building 6 blocks away, somewhere on the 42nd floor. Lucas was probably making final preparations for his demo. Madison was likely taking selfies in my old office, and my team was watching the clock. And 37:42. "Yes," I said, meeting Thomas Brennan's eyes. "Let's discuss exactly what happens when that countdown reaches 0. The conference room at ArcLight Systems had been transformed into a technological shrine. 3 massive displays showed Monarch's interface in stunning resolution, while the company's best engineers stood ready at support stations. The Durham Equity Partners team sat around the polished table, 5 executives in suits that cost more than most cars, tablets ready to capture every detail of the demonstration that would justify their $1.3 billion investment. Lucas Varelli stood at the head of the table, his confidence radiating like cologne too strong and slightly nauseating. Beside him, Madison posed with a tablet, having changed into a different designer outfit since this morning. Her live stream was already active, broadcasting to her followers about revolutionizing AI technology and taking Daddy's company to the next level. "Gentlemen, ladies," Lucas began, his voice carrying the practiced tone of 1,000 pitches. "What you're about to see isn't just software, it's the future of artificial intelligence. Monarch represents 10 years of innovation, and under the leadership of our new tech innovation director," he gestured to Madison, who waved at her phone camera, "we're prepared to scale beyond anything our competitors can imagine." The lead investor, Richard Durham himself, leaned forward. Let's see it in action. Lucas nodded to the lead demonstration engineer, who began typing commands. The screens flickered to life, showing Monarch's initialization sequence. Everything looked perfect for exactly 12 seconds. Then the first error message appeared. System architect verification required. The engineer frowned, typing rapidly. Just a minor hiccup. Let me... Access denied. Authentication failure. What's happening? Lucas's voice tightened, though his smile remained plastered in place. I'm not sure, sir. The system is requesting architect-level credentials. Then use them, Lucas snapped. Sir, they're not working. The screens flashed red. A new message appeared, larger this time. Licensing verification required. Time remaining, 12:47. Contact system architect for resolution. Madison, oblivious to the growing panic, continued her live stream. So sometimes technology has these little glitches, but that's why we have such an amazing team. Turn that off, Lucas hissed at her, his face flushing. She blinked at him, confused, but kept recording. The Durham team exchanged glances. Richard Durham's expression had shifted from interest to concern. Mr. Varelli, is there a problem with your system? No problem at all. Just a routine security protocol. Lucas turned to his CTO, my replacement. Apparently, a man named Harrison who'd been promoted approximately 30 minutes ago. Fix this, now. Harrison's fingers flew across the keyboard, sweat beading on his forehead. Sir, I can't access the core systems. It's like they're locked from the outside. That's impossible. We control all access points. Not all of them, Harrison said quietly, his face pale as he stared at the screen. There's something here about a level 17. I've never seen this before. The countdown continued its merciless progression. 11:23. Get Rachel Morgan on the phone. Lucas barked at his assistant. Sir, she was terminated this morning. I know she was terminated. Get her anyway. Madison's live stream was capturing everything. Her followers' comments streaming in real time. Is this supposed to happen? LMAO tech fail? Maybe the niece should fix it. The phone rang on speaker. My voicemail picked up. Professional and pleasant. You've reached Rachel Morgan. I'm currently unavailable. If this is regarding Monarch system architecture, please consult your licensing agreement. Have a great day. Lucas slammed his hand on the table. The Durham executives flinched. Mr. Varelli. Richard Durham stood slowly, gathering his materials. It appears you have internal issues to resolve. We'll need to postpone this demonstration. Wait, please. This is just a minor issue. Durham's voice could have frozen hellfire. Your system is completely inaccessible during a billion-dollar demonstration. Your new tech director is live streaming our confidential meeting to social media, and apparently, the only person who can fix this is someone you fired this morning. He shook his head. We'll be in touch. Maybe. The Durham team filed out, their footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. The countdown reached 08:45. Sir, Harrison said, his voice barely above a whisper. I found something in the system logs. There's a licensing structure I've never seen before. It's not registered to ArcLight. What do you mean? The core Monarch patents. They're registered to something called Morgan Technologies, LLC. We have usage rights, but they're conditional on... He trailed off, his face white as paper. Conditional on what? Lucas's voice was deadly quiet. On Rachel Morgan's continued employment with ArcLight Systems. The room erupted. Madison's live stream caught it all, Lucas screaming at his lawyers on the phone. Harrison desperately trying to break through the system lockdown. Engineers scrambling like ants from a destroyed hill. The hashtag #HatMonarchFail was trending within minutes. Owl 533. Uncle Lucas, Madison whined, finally lowering her phone. Can't we just hire her back? Lucas turned on her with fury in his eyes. Get out! Get out! She fled, her heels clicking rapidly down the hallway, but the damage was done. Her live stream had captured everything, broadcasting ArcLight's humiliation to hundreds of thousands of viewers. The screens went dark as the countdown reached 100. Then, a single message appeared. Monarch system entering protective mode. All access revoked. For licensing inquiries, contact Morgan Technologies, LLC. Authorized Representative Margaret Morgan. In the span of 90 minutes, Lucas Varelli had lost everything. The Durham deal was dead. The stock price was plummeting in real time as news of the failed demo spread. And Monarch, the crown jewel of ArcLight Systems, the technology that justified their entire valuation, was locked behind a wall of my creation. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas Brennan. 11 missed calls from ArcLight Legal. Shall I return them? I smiled, typing back, "Not yet. Let them sweat until noon." My laptop screen lit up with alerts: 25 attempts to breach Layer 17 in the past 2 minutes alone. The IP addresses were interesting: Romania, Russia, Malaysia, and one particularly aggressive attempt from Belarus. Lucas had gone straight to the dark web, throwing money at hackers like a desperate gambler doubling down on a losing hand. I sat in Brennan's conference room, watching the attack attempts scroll past like a digital waterfall. Each one failed before it could even touch the first encryption layer. They were trying to break down a door that didn't exist. Layer 17 wasn't a security protocol you could hack. It was a logic gate, elegant in its simplicity. Without the proper licensing verification, Monarch simply didn't recognize itself as existing. "Impressive," Thomas Brennan said, looking over my shoulder. "They're throwing serious firepower at your system." "Let them," I replied, initiating my countermeasure. "They're about to learn why you don't attack something you don't understand." My fingers danced across the keyboard, activating a honeypot I'd built years ago, a false version of Monarch's core that looked convincing enough to fool anyone who didn't know better. It would let them think they'd broken through, give them just enough access to believe they'd won. The attack patterns shifted. Someone had taken the bait. "Got you," I whispered, watching as the hackers dove deeper into my trap. They were downloading what they thought was Monarch's source code. In reality, they were downloading a very special package, one that would phone home the moment they tried to compile it, revealing their exact location and, more importantly, who was paying them. My phone rang. Janet, my lead developer. "Rachel, what the hell is happening? The entire system is down. Harrison's about to have a stroke, and Lucas just fired 3 people from IT." "Where are you calling from?" "The bathroom. It's chaos out there. Someone said they saw Lucas actually throw a laptop." "Listen carefully," I said. "In about 5 minutes, they're going to think they've regained control. When that happens, I need you to stall, ask questions, demand to review any code before it's implemented. Can you do that?" "Of course. But Rachel, what's really going on?" "Lucas hired hackers. They're about to make a critical mistake." "Jesus. Should I document this?" "Everything. Screenshots, emails, recordings if you can manage it. We're going to need evidence." I ended the call and turned back to my screen. The hackers had fully embraced the honeypot, uploading what they believed was a patch to override Layer 17. Lucas was probably watching over their shoulders, credit card in hand, ready to celebrate his victory. The patch activated. Immediately, Monarch appeared to come back online. I could imagine the cheers in the conference room, Lucas's smug satisfaction, maybe even Harrison's relieved sigh. They had no idea they were celebrating their own downfall. The honeypot began its real work. Every terminal that accessed the false Monarch instance was tagged. Every command was logged. And most importantly, a hidden protocol began uploading ArcLight's internal communications directly to a secure server I controlled. If Lucas wanted to play dirty, I'd show him what that really meant. An email notification popped up forwarded by the honeypot from Lucas's own account. "Payment confirmed. 50K transferred to CryptoGhost for emergency system recovery. Delete this thread." I screenshotted immediately. Securities fraud, wire fraud, computer fraud. Lucas had just committed enough felonies to keep lawyers busy for years. But the best part was yet to come. The hackers, drunk on their apparent success, began implementing what they thought were system improvements. Each change they made actually degraded Monarch's performance, introducing lag, errors, and conflicts that would become apparent only under heavy load, exactly the kind of load a demonstration to investors would create. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Nice try with the honeypot, but we're better than that." I smiled and typed back, "Are you? Check your compile logs." There was a long pause. Then, "Who is this?" "The architect. Enjoy the FBI visit." The unknown number went silent. On my screen, I watched as the hacker's connection suddenly terminated. They'd realized their mistake. The phone home protocol had already transmitted their real location and identity to authorities. Lucas had hired amateurs who thought they were professionals. Thomas Brennan chuckled beside me. "Remind me never to cross you, Ms. Morgan." "I'm not vindictive," I said, closing my laptop. "I'm thorough. There's a difference." "What now?" I stood, gathering my things. "Now we wait. Lucas thinks he's won. He'll try to salvage the Durham deal, probably schedule an emergency demonstration, and when Monarch fails spectacularly, which it will, thanks to our hacker friend's improvements, he'll have no one to blame but himself. And the FBI investigation, that's just insurance. The real victory happens when they realize that even if they somehow regain control of Monarch, they still don't own it. My mother does, and she's about to become a very wealthy woman." As I left Brennan's office, my phone lit up with notifications. The tech blogs had picked up Madison's live stream. "ArcLight Systems in Crisis," read one headline. "Billion-dollar deal dies in real time," proclaimed another. But the one that made me smile was from TechCrunch. Former ArcLight CTO allegedly holds key to 1.3B system lockout. Allegedly, I like that. It left room for doubt, for Lucas to wonder just how deep this went, how much control I really had. The truth was, I had all of it. Every line of code, every patent filing, every late night and early morning I'd invested in Monarch, it all led to this moment. Lucas Varelli thought he'd fired me at 7:59 this morning. By noon, he'd realized he'd actually fired himself. The Fairmont Hotel's executive lounge existed in that rarefied space where deals worth billions were discussed over $20 coffees. I arrived at 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes early for my meeting with Clara Renner. She was already there, positioned at a corner table with a view of the city skyline, her silver hair catching the afternoon light. Clara Renner didn't stand when I approached. Powers like her never stood, they simply gestured, and the world rearranged itself around them. As the senior partner at Durham Equity, she'd overseen more tech acquisitions than most people had hot meals. "Ms. Morgan," she said, indicating the chair across from her. "I've had an interesting morning." "I imagine you have." I settled into the leather chair, declining the waiter's offer of champagne. I needed clarity for what came next. "Richard called me directly after the demonstration." Her lips quirked in what might have been amusement. In 30 years of partnership, I've never heard him quite so animated. He used words I didn't know were in his vocabulary. "ArcLight disappointed him." "ArcLight." She leaned back, studying me over her coffee cup. "No, my dear, Lucas Varelli disappointed him. ArcLight is just a shell. What we were interested in was Monarch, and Monarch, it seems, was never really theirs to sell." She produced a tablet, sliding it across the table. On the screen was a document I recognized, the original incorporation filing for Morgan Technologies LLC, with my mother's name prominently displayed. "Our legal team has been busy since 10:30 this morning," Clara continued. "What they found was illuminating every core patent, every fundamental innovation that makes Monarch valuable. It all traces back to this LLC. ArcLight has been licensing technology they never owned. They had full usage rights," I said carefully, "as long as certain conditions were met. Conditions that were violated at 7:59 this morning." She smiled then, sharp as winter. "Tell me, Ms. Morgan, was this always the plan?" I met her gaze steadily. The plan was to build something revolutionary. The protection was just insurance. Insurance, she savored the word. And now that insurance is about to pay out, the question is, what do you want? This was the moment I'd been preparing for since I'd walked out of ArcLight's building. I want to build the company ArcLight should have been. No nepotism, no ego-driven decisions, no treating innovation like a commodity to be packaged and sold to the highest bidder. You want control. I want purpose, I corrected. Monarch can be more than just profitable. It can be transformative, but only if it's developed correctly, ethically, with a long-term vision that goes beyond quarterly earnings. Clara's expression shifted, becoming more focused. Durham Equity was prepared to invest $1.3 billion in acquiring Monarch from ArcLight. That offer is obviously dead, but the technology still exists, and we still want it. What are you proposing? A new entity, Monarch Global Systems. Durham provides the capital and infrastructure. You provide the technology and vision. Your mother's LLC licenses the patents to the new company under terms you control. And ArcLight. ArcLight becomes irrelevant. They can keep their company, their building, their corporate culture, but without Monarch, they're just another mid-tier tech firm scrambling for relevance. She slid another document across the table. The number at the bottom made my breath catch. That's the signing bonus, Clara said casually. Your salary as chief architect would be separate, as would the budget for your mother's medical treatment, full coverage at Cedars-Sinai, the best oncologists in the country. Experimental treatments if needed. We take care of our people, Ms. Morgan. I thought of my mother, fighting cancer with the same quiet strength she'd faced every challenge. I thought of my team at ArcLight. Brilliant minds trapped under incompetent leadership. I thought of Madison's sneer and Lucas's dismissal. I have conditions, I said. I expected nothing less. First, I bring my team, the core developers who built Monarch with me. They deserve to see it succeed. Done. Second, Monarch's ethical guidelines are non-negotiable. No surveillance applications, no military contracts without defensive purposes, no selling user data. We build tools that empower, not exploit. Clara's eyebrow rose slightly. That will limit certain revenue streams. It will open others. Companies are desperate for AI they can trust. We'll be the gold standard. Third, Madison Varelli's live stream made Monarch's failure public. I want our launch to be equally visible. When we announce Monarch Global Systems, I want the tech world to know exactly who built this technology and who tried to steal it. Clara laughed then, genuine and delighted. Oh, I like you. Ms. Morgan, yes, I think we can arrange that. Anything else? I thought for a moment. Yes, I want the signing ceremony to be at 10:47 a.m. Specific timing. Let's just say it has personal significance. We spent the next hour working through details, Clara's legal team joining us via video conference. By 3:30 p.m., the framework was complete. Monarch Global Systems would exist by end of business today. The patents would transfer smoothly from my mother's LLC, and Lucas Varelli would wake up tomorrow to find his company's valuation had dropped by roughly $1.3 billion. As we concluded, Clara stood a rare honor. Ms. Morgan, I've seen a lot of founders over the years. The brilliant ones who can't execute. The driven ones who lack vision. You're something rarer. What's that? Patient. You waited 3 years for this moment. That kind of long-term thinking is exactly what Monarch Global needs. She extended her hand, and I shook it, feeling the weight of the moment. This morning, I'd been fired in disgrace. This afternoon, I was about to become chief architect of a company with effectively unlimited resources. One more thing, Clara said as I gathered my belongings. Lucas Varelli has been calling our offices nonstop. He's desperate to salvage the deal. Should I return his calls? I considered for a moment, then smiled. Tell him Durham Equity is in negotiations with the patent holder. If he wants to discuss licensing Monarch for ArcLight's use, he can contact Morgan Technologies LLC directly. And will your mother take his call? My mother doesn't negotiate with people who have too much gel in their hair. It's a firm rule. Clara's laughter followed me out of the lounge. As I walked through the hotel lobby, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. The hospital just called. They said something about a new payment arrangement, Rachel. What did you do? I stepped into the afternoon sunlight and typed back, I got fired at 7:59. By 3:47, I owned everything they needed to survive. That's my girl, came the immediate response. Yes, I thought, heading toward my car. That's exactly who I am. The news broke at 4:15 p.m., cascading through tech blogs and financial networks like digital wildfire. Arclight Systems loses core technology in employment dispute. Durham Equity abandons $1.3 billion deal. Former CTO holds patents to revolutionary AI system. I watched the coverage from my home office, fielding calls from reporters, former colleagues, and recruiters who suddenly found my expertise invaluable. But the call I was waiting for came at 4:37 p.m. Ms. Morgan. The voice was strained, barely controlled. Harold Fitzgerald, Chief Legal Counsel for Arclight Systems. I'm calling regarding the Monarch situation. What situation would that be, Harold? Please don't be coy. We've reviewed the patent filings. We know about Morgan Technologies LLC. Then you know there's nothing to discuss. The licensing agreement was crystal clear. That agreement was made under false pretenses. You were an employee acting in bad faith. I was an employee protecting my intellectual property, I interrupted. Every filing was legal. Every disclosure made according to contract. You had 3 years to review the structure. Your negligence isn't my responsibility. There was a pause. When Harold spoke again, his tone had shifted from aggressive to desperate. Lucas wants to meet. He's willing to discuss reinstatement, back pay, promotion to president of technology. No, you haven't heard the full offer. I don't need to. Lucas Varelli fired me because I refused to babysit his niece. He thought I was disposable. That decision has consequences. Rachel, please. The board is in emergency session. Our stock has dropped 37% in 6 hours. Without Monarch, we're facing potential bankruptcy. I felt a cold satisfaction spread through my chest. Then perhaps the board should have thought about that before allowing nepotism to override competence. What do you want? His voice cracked on the words. Name your price. I already have what I want. Monarch Global Systems launches tomorrow. We'll be offering enterprise licenses at competitive rates. Arclight is welcome to apply like any other potential client. This is extortion. No, Harold. This is business. The same kind of business Lucas conducted when he terminated me without cause and tried to steal 10 years of my work. The difference is, I did it legally. I ended the call and immediately blocked the number. There would be more attempts from board members, investors, maybe even Lucas himself. But I was done negotiating with people who saw innovation as something to be owned rather than nurtured. My laptop chimed with a video call. Janet's face appeared, and behind her, I could see several familiar faces, my core team from Arclight. Rachel, is it true? Janet's eyes were bright with excitement. Monarch Global Durham backing. It's true, and I want all of you with me. Same positions, 50% salary increase, equity stakes, and the chance to build Monarch the way we always dreamed. The cheers that erupted made me smile. These were the people who'd stayed late debugging code, who'd believed in the vision even when management didn't understand it, who'd made Monarch possible. When do we start? Asked David, my senior architect. Monday. Durham's legal team will handle the exit negotiations with Arclight. Just document everything and don't sign anything without running it by our lawyers first. What about our current projects? This from Sarah, the database engineer. Arclight will have to figure that out. We built clean, documented code. If they can't maintain it without us, that's their failure, not ours. After the call, I poured myself a glass of wine and moved to my balcony. The city stretched out below, lights beginning to twinkle in the approaching dusk. Somewhere in that maze of glass and steel, Lucas Varelli was probably raging at lawyers, demanding solutions that didn't exist. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but I recognized the tone immediately. "You've destroyed everything I built. I hope you're satisfied, L." I considered not responding, then typed back, "You destroyed it yourself the moment you chose nepotism over merit. I just refuse to go down with your ship." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "The board wants to negotiate. They're willing to remove me as CEO if you'll come back." I stared at the message, feeling the weight of that offer. A year ago, maybe even 6 months ago, I might have been tempted. The chance to run ArcLight properly, to implement the vision Lucas had corrupted with his ego and favoritism. But that was before this morning, before the dismissal, before the realization that I didn't need ArcLight, they needed me. "Too late," I typed. "Monarch Global launches tomorrow. Maybe Madison can build you something new." I blocked that number too. As the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, I thought about paths not taken and choices that define us. By every conventional measure, getting fired should have been a disaster. Instead, it had become liberation. My mother called as I was preparing dinner. "I got the strangest call today," she said, humor coloring her voice. "Someone named Lucas, very agitated, offering me $10 million for some paperwork I signed." "What did you tell him?" "That I don't negotiate with men who fire my daughter. Also that his hair gel was showing up even over video call, which seemed unprofessional." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time all day. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, sweetheart. Now, tell me about this new company, and don't skip any details." As I filled her in on Monarch Global, on Durham's backing, on the team that would join us, I felt the last of the day's tension dissolve. Tomorrow, the press release would go out. The tech world would wake up to a new reality, one where Monarch existed independent of ArcLight, where innovation trumped nepotism, where a fired engineer owned the very foundation her former company needed to survive. But tonight, I simply enjoyed the quiet satisfaction of a plan executed flawlessly. They'd fired me at 7:59 a.m. By sunset, I'd won everything. The 42nd floor of the Durham building had been transformed overnight. Where yesterday there had been empty space, now stood the future headquarters of Monarch Global Systems. I arrived at 10:30 a.m., 17 minutes before the signing ceremony that would officially launch our company. The space was perfect floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic city views, open floor plans that encouraged collaboration, and most importantly, no executive floor segregating leadership from innovation. We would build differently here. My team was already setting up, their excitement palpable. Janet had brought champagne. David was configuring our servers. Sarah had created a countdown clock on the main display, ticking toward 10:47 a.m., the moment everything would become official. Nervous, Clara Renner appeared beside me, impeccable as always in her charcoal suit. "No," I said honestly, "this feels right." "Good, because we have visitors." I turned to see a small crowd gathering near the elevators. Tech journalists, industry bloggers, even a few venture capitalists who'd gotten wind of our launch. But what caught my attention was the CNN crew setting up cameras. "I thought we agreed to a simple press release," I said. Clara smiled. "That was before Lucas Varelli held a press conference this morning claiming you stole proprietary technology. He's threatening legal action." "Let him. Discovery would be fascinating." "My thoughts exactly, but I thought you might want to respond more, publicly." As if on cue, my phone buzzed, a message from my mother. "Watching the news? Lucas looks terrible. His hair gel can't hide the panic. Give them hell, sweetheart." At exactly 10:47 a.m., I stood before the assembled crowd, pen in hand. The contracts lay spread across the table in corporation documents, patent transfers, employment agreements for my team. Everything that would transform Monarch from ArcLight's lost asset into an independent force. "Ms. Morgan," a reporter called out, "how do you respond to accusations that you sabotaged ArcLight systems?" I signed the first document before answering. I spent 10 years building Monarch. Every innovation, every breakthrough, every line of code that made it valuable came from my team's dedication. The only sabotage was Lucas Varelli's decision to prioritize nepotism over competence. But weren't you an ArcLight employee when you filed these patents? I was an employee protecting my intellectual property through completely legal means. I signed the second document. ArcLight had full access to Monarch as long as our employment agreement was honored. They chose to violate that agreement. What about your former colleagues still at ArcLight? I gestured to my team. The people who truly built Monarch are right here. As for those who remain, ArcLight is welcome to apply for a Monarch license like any other company. We believe in fair access to innovation. The final signature. As my pen left the paper, the countdown clock hit 0. Cheers erupted from my team. Champagne corks popped, and somewhere across the city, ArcLight's stock price dropped another 12%. Clara stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to announce that Durham Equity Partners has fully funded Monarch Global Systems with an initial investment that will allow us to scale immediately. We're not just launching a company, we're launching a new standard for ethical AI development. The questions continued, but I let Clara handle them. I had one more thing to do. I walked to my new office, not a corner executive suite, but a workspace in the heart of our development floor. No walls, no barriers between me and my team. On my desk sat a simple placard, Rachel Morgan, Chief Architect. I placed my hand on the nameplate, feeling the weight of the moment. This morning, a year ago, I'd walked into ArcLight excited about building the future. This morning, I'd walked into Lucas Varelli's office expecting a strategy meeting. Instead, I'd been discarded like obsolete code. But code has a funny property: delete it without understanding its dependencies, and your entire system crashes. My laptop chimed with an email. The sender made me pause. Madison Varelli. Ms. Morgan, I wanted to apologize for my behavior yesterday. I've realized I was set up to fail by my uncle, who used me to justify his actions. I'm leaving ArcLight and returning to school for a real computer science degree. Maybe someday I could learn from someone who actually built something instead of just inheriting it. Madison. I smiled and typed back, Monarch Global has an excellent internship program. Apply when you're ready to work for it. Through my window, I could see the ArcLight building in the distance. By now, Lucas would be in another emergency board meeting, trying to explain how he'd lost everything in a single morning, how a company valued at billions had become a shell without its core technology. He'd probably never understand that it wasn't about revenge, it was about respect for innovation, for dedication, for the people who transform ideas into reality. He'd tried to reduce 10 years of breakthrough work to a training exercise for his unqualified niece. He'd thought talent was replaceable, that loyalty could be discarded, that ownership was more important than creation. My team gathered around, glasses raised in a toast. These were the people who'd believed in Monarch when it was just impossible math on a whiteboard, who'd debugged code at 3 a.m. and celebrated breakthroughs at dawn, who'd chosen to follow me into uncertainty because they believed in what we could build together. To Monarch Global, Janet said, raising her glass. To doing it right this time, David added. To showing them what we're really capable of, Sarah chimed in. I raised my own glass, thinking of my mother starting her new treatment protocol, of the technology we'd build without corporate interference, of the future we'd create on our own terms. To second chances, I said, and to making sure we never need a third. We drank, we celebrated, and then we got to work, because while Lucas Varelli was still trying to understand what had happened, we were already building what came next. They fired me at 7:59 a.m. By 10:47 a.m., I owned everything they needed to survive. And that was just the beginning. Thank you so much for listening to this story of corporate justice and sweet revenge. I'm curious, where are you listening to this story from? Drop a comment below and let's connect. If you enjoyed Rachel's journey from fired employee to tech CEO, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever experienced workplace injustice? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Remember, sometimes the best revenge is massive success.